Welcome to another image critique from Toby.
And Christina.
We're coming to you from Digital Photo Recommendations, and this week we are doing something a little different. Usually we let the random number generator pick from the images submitted within the last week. We're going to pick some images that really just spoke to us, either for whatever reason. And we're just going to dive right into it. But let me tell you, as we were picking, we had to keep the number limited, so otherwise we'd be here all night. There were so many more that I wanted to pick to talk about. You all have submitted some fantastic, and I'm not just blowing sunshine up people's butts. There are some unbelievable, fantastic images in here. I hope maybe I'll be back in to talk about more of them later this week. But for now, let's dive right in. The first image is this one I picked from Virginia, called Hide and Seek. The colors in here are spectacular. I love it. I love that kind of misty mountains in the distance. What I don't think I love is that the sun is right behind the tree. I think you compose that purposefully in an effort to silhouette, but it just kind of clumps everything that is the subject in such a way that it leaves the rest of the picture, in my opinion, feeling a little unbalanced. And I think shifting and letting these three trees stand on their own with the sun in another part of the image may have made this a little stronger. But I noticed that Flickr has updated the way they display their metadata with little icons now. It looks a little different. But the sharpness and the quality in this beginning of the frame is just really, really spectacular. Beautiful shot, Virginia. Thank you. Do you want to add anything, Christina?
No,
Okay. Moving on. Christina, you picked this one?
I did, and I think what really stood out to me of about this image is just the motion, and there's different things going on. There's the jellyfish that was captured completely still, and then there's a lot of motion in the background, and I just love the way that my eye goes right from the clear focus, that jellyfish that's almost in the center, and then it jumps around to the other ones. And I love the colors as well. I think if I were to change something, I would maybe try to crop this area right here, but I'm not gonna be too critical because I love the kind of all the chaos that's going on in this image. And it's just really nicely composed and very, very well exposed as well. So
It's nice. I like it. Moving on. Sunset at Singapore. Now, we didn't look at these bigger. This looks like it is. I like the colors in this as well, but it looks like we're looking at using HDR and a little editing on Snapseed. Okay, I like the colors. I think that little bit of editing on Snapseed and maybe the HDR really brought out some noise. ISO 80. Oh, with the iPhone. Okay. Really brought out some noise up here, but it has this kind of painterly quality to it. One thing that I'll say, and this is very similar to what I said for Virginia, and maybe our subject matter over on the left of the frame gets really uninteresting quick, and you're purposefully trying to cut it out. But having those buildings kind of centered with, again, makes this feel a little blah. And I think it could be a stronger image if all of that was shifted to the right a little bit, and we saw what might be a little bit more nature and kind of compare and contrast our big steel against the green that we're starting to see over there on the left. But I see a little bit of a crane or something, so maybe you did that on purpose. There's also not a ton of reflection in the water, and there's a lot of it. So you could also get rid of some of that foreground and include a little bit more of the sky, which does have a good bit going on with some of those foreclouds and the colors as well.
I thought the biggest issue with this image was just the horizon line that's slanted to the right a little bit. I think, and as I'm sure everybody knows now, I'm really picky about that. But other than that, I think the first thing that really kind of caught my eye or just I found really interesting was that this was shot with an iPhone. I didn't expect it to have been shot with an iPhone. It's a really nice image.
Yep.
So.
Yep. I think it's interesting. I think this is the first iPhone image that we've critiqued or knowingly critiqued in that metadata that comes over. It's that 1 773rd of a second.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's
sure I
funny.
said that right, but yep. Okay, moving on. This is one that I picked. This is almost surreal. This is a really cool image. The light and the textures in here are amazing. Is this surreal? Is this a composite?
I think it's a composite.
Okay. From the thumbnail image, it really grabbed my attention, but now I'm looking kind of the way this light is down here and the way this kind of silver molding is. But this is really interesting in telling the story of, what is she looking at, peeking in, and there being this kind of otherworldly light coming in through there. Yeah, we definitely have some Photoshop action going on with a light source up here as well. But if you put this together in Photoshop, you did a really nice job, and I think it's cool. I'd like to see a couple of the original images that you started with. Feel free to post those somewhere and link to them in a comment on this video. Photo composites are certainly welcome here as well, and I think they can be really, really interesting. So, good. Thank you.
So I chose this one. I thought that the backlighting on this image was really cool. I don't know if it really necessarily fits with the subject matter, but it certainly highlights and, what's the word I'm looking? It outlines the spider and it outlines the web, and the composition is really nice. The spider, which is the subject of the image, is to the right of the image. It intersects a little bit with some of the highlights from the background blur. So that's not really a huge deal, but I think that the photo would be a little bit stronger if those were a little bit more defined.
You could shift so that the spider wasn't intersecting with this blob of
Yeah.
Yeah. Bush.
But otherwise, the nice exposure. I kind of like the warmth of it, even though it does look a little bit yellow, but I think the warmth kind of works in this case.
So this was their backyard light. Owen's backyard light. I see that in your description. Yeah, I would just, you're a little soft here. You were, I think probably working under really tough conditions, very low light with a backyard light. You were all the way up at ISO 6400. That's going to soften the image some from the noise. You're at 1/20th of a second. I'm going to guess handheld with the image stabilized 18 to 55. It's getting close to tough to really handhold, and shooting at f5.6, which was the lens's maximum aperture at 55 millimeters, which you're shooting, which also can contribute. So you very likely would not have been able to get the same level of lightness in this image shooting at anything other than what you did. But if you could have, you probably would have gotten a little bit of a sharper image.
Yeah, but I mean, it seems like all the reasons that you chose for choosing the settings that you did are all good reasons. So you pushed your camera as far as you could.
Yep. And this is a good illustration of that you can get background blur out of the kit lens. Shooting at 55 and f5.6, that stuff back there is blurred. I'm going to suspect that you were very, very close to the spider. You may have even been as close as you could get close focus with the 55 too. And that's another thing that may have contributed to softness. Thank you, Owen.
So I chose this one too. This image is...
I kind of chose it too.
Yeah, we both kind of wanted it to be part of this critique because it's just there's so much feeling conveyed in this image. And well, why don't you take, why don't you...
Well, the first things that grabbed me is, the muscles in this creature, this bonobo male, I think that's a chimpanzee, a type of chimpanzee, are just more outlined than I've ever seen before, and I don't know why, but that is the first thing that grabbed my attention. They're just
human-like.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and very clearly defined, and I think really highlighted in this image. That's the first thing I noticed. The second is just kind of this pose of thinking man pose of just gazing off and thinking about something, and sniffing other bonobos' behind, but no, sorry, I shouldn't say that because it's a serious picture, and we get a little bit of softness in this hand here. I'd like to know, but really nice. I really like it. We'll cut off the bottom, but then maybe we'd be seeing some of the privates of the bonobo, and we don't really want to. I like this image, and I can't come up with anything not to like about it. And I think if I had taken this, I'd be really, really happy. The catch lights in his eyes just works.
Yeah, I think that direction of the light is really perfect. And I know you didn't necessarily have control over this, but being able to identify that and see it and capturing it is a skill that is learned over time. I just like this moment. Like one of the things that really just continuously inspires me about photography is that you are capturing this tiny fraction of time that you might never get again. So who knows what this guy did, like 2 seconds before, 2 seconds after this photo was taken. But you have this, and you have this particular expression, and you have just a really, really interesting portrait of, a very cool animal.
I agree. I think it's actually funny that you said that about that capturing moment in time. That's something I've been thinking about making a video about, or at least talking about more in depth soon. But yeah, really, really nice. And I also think black and white works really well here. Great choice. I'd like to know what lens you shot this with. We got some great background blur back there. Thank you, Simi. I picked this one from Samantha. Oh, she's gotten ones picked before, I think. I am picking this one because I like that it is a very different perspective. I think if I came up to a turtle or found a turtle, I would get down on eye level, because that's what I tell people a lot of times when you're taking pictures of smaller creatures. Get down on their level. Let's see them from their eye view. And you didn't do that here, but you are focused on the eyes. Perfect. And it is a kind of a different view than you would get otherwise, with this kind of down view highlighting enough of the shell. We know what it is. We got that nice little snout. Could have maybe shot it at a little bit deeper depth of field to get just all of the face in focus, but really that's a small comment. Otherwise, I think it's really nice. Another great example of how great the kit lens is, and we have this really nice completely blurred out bottom here. I imagine it was pretty close, but I think that looks great. It just fills the frame. And I think one other thing that I mentioned before about beginners often think they should try to capture everything. So it's another easy approach. There's a turtle. Let me take a picture of the turtle. Oh, this is great. We know it's a turtle. We've got enough to know it's a turtle. We're in close. Get in close. As Kev says, nice close up, Sammy. You want to add anything, Christina?
No, I think you summed it up really nicely.
Great. And you picked this one.
I did. I really think this image does a really good job of showing the rule of thirds and how you can, like crop out your foreground almost entirely and still get a completely interesting and really great, strong image. So the foreground here, which wasn't actually completely cropped out, is that little bit of water at the bottom. And it is actually a little bit crooked. And there's some distracting elements that could have been retouched out.
It looks like a little sun flare or something.
Yeah,
yep.
and then this stuff,
Yep.
I may just crop all of this out, because I think that the sky is really, really interesting just by itself, just all of the different kinds of clouds and the contrasts and the colors and that. So yeah, I chose this image because I wanted you guys to see just how you can still create a really interesting image by carefully, choosing your composition and even cropping out the foreground entirely, which is something that, I think most people don't necessarily gravitate to.
Yep. I'd just add that I just would add that I think it's interesting you were using the 10 to 22 millimeter lens, very wide lens on a 70D, but you were shooting at 22 millimeters. So a lot of folks out there think, and I'm not saying OMG look out, this is you, but I'm just using this lens in this image as an example. A lot of folks think I need a wide angle lens to capture these big scenes, when in fact the focal length you ended up on is one that you can get with the kit lens as well. You started 18 with those kit lenses, and so could have been shot here as well. I just agree about the bottom here, but I think really just captured that big sky, and a lot of times that's really difficult to kind of translate to picture when you're in these big open spaces. Rattlesnake Lake, Washington. Thank you, OMG Lookout. That's a really nice photo. I picked this one from Charlie Cam because I'm going to hope or assume that you were inspired by my steel wool photography picture, and I want to say you took it to another level. One of the things that bothered me about almost every one of my steel wool pictures was that they weren't quite wide enough, and I had sparks flying off the frame here or there. And in this one, you are back wide enough. I like that you're kind of at this angle, and every bit of flying spark from that steel wool is captured. And you even got some stars up there as well. This is a D7100 with the Sigma 17 to 70. I like that lens a lot. 20 seconds, f6.3, ISO 400. Really nice. You've even got a little bit of stars up here. Maybe you could have dimmed that star a little bit, but that's being picky. I think this is a nice shot, and I really like it. Anything you want to add, Christina?
No.
The last one we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, and I chose that one, and I think we talk about black and white portraits often, but I think this was interesting because there's such high contrast. And there's high contrast because I believe that the lights in this setting were very bright against all of the darkness of this, concert. But then also I think there might have been some contrast added in post-processing. So I think what I wanted to highlight about this image was that first the composition. No distracting part of this woman was cut off. So the composition is pretty impeccable, even though, she was moving around. So
I would just say, in the fact that you have the hand out there
yeah,
with enough, just a little bit of room around it, and yes, perfect.
It invokes a lot of emotion. So it really shows kind of how the concert probably felt, and the type of music that she was singing. So, and then the other thing that I wanted to also related to composition was that the brightest part of the image is right on her face, which is actually the main part of the image, the part that stands out the most. So again, you probably didn't have full control of the light, but I think that by really waiting for the right moment where she was in the right place and her face and this hand in this area of the image was illuminated the brightest, and taking the picture, then I just shows really good timing, which kind of relates back to capturing the perfect moment in time, which is what photography is all about. It's about being patient, about waiting for the subject to be in good light, and then pressing the shutter and hopefully getting lucky enough to capture the shot that you've been envisioning. So
yeah. I think I'm curious what lens you were using. 276 millimeters f4. So that's
interesting.
100 to 400.
Maybe.
So Jonathan, very nice image. Thank you. And as I said, there are a fantastic. We're working under a little bit of time constraints tonight, so it's going to be a little bit shorter. But as I said, I hope to be back in here and give you some more thoughts and opinions soon, before the next one, in fact. But really love the panning here and the motion blur. Oh, look at that dog. So thank you so much for submitting. Keep on submitting. We will keep on critiquing. And if you have any questions, if you would like to follow up, I love almost every week, almost everybody whose images we critiqued have either followed up on the comments or over on Facebook, just giving me their thoughts and kind of feedback. And I really appreciate that. it's nice to have that dialogue with you all. So thanks so much for watching, and if you haven't already, if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, please do, and please pop an image or two into this group. Do not be intimidated by all of these beautiful images. I am slightly, but we want all of the different images in here, and we will be talking about them. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.